she never wanted to be CEO of Alameda, and she fucked it up, and she knew that.
She does say that you directed her to do so much, though.
Yeah, they ignore the word directed, and that's a lie. Most of the times it's been said. I think she was more aware and more worried than I was. I think she has perjured herself. She had to compare how happy she'd be in prison to how happy she was running Alameda, and not sure what she'd be happier doing.
Really?
Among other things, she just shut down Alameda a year ago, rather than leaving it to other people to run.
What's up, guys? It's me, Tiff, and I'm in New York City watching Sam Bankman-Fried's criminal trial in person. I've been following this case very closely since the very beginning, and I've actually interviewed Sam multiple times throughout his house arrest. In this audio, Sam Bankman-Fried talks about Caroline Ellison and Gary Wang testifying against him. Over the last 2 weeks in court, we've gotten to hear their side of the story. The gist is that both have already pled guilty, have admitted to committing financial crimes, and have stated that they committed those crimes under the direction of Sam Bankman-Fried. Sam has a different retelling of events and essentially claims in this audio that Gary Wang and Caroline Ellison are lying to prosecutors. I included my reaction video to this audio, so don't mind me eating a beef stick and a smoothie during this. I'm sorry, I am incredibly unprofessional, but I have no interest in being professional.
Gary has not said anything publicly. He pled guilty. He gave an allocution. There's very little content in his allocution. It was a small fraction of the size of Caroline's. And Gary's very shy. He's not one to say anything publicly. So he's not saying, he's like, and he wouldn't be particularly trusted either.
Why not?
Same reason I wouldn't be.
It seems that they're listening to Gary and Caroline.
Gary a little bit. Caroline quite a bit. And, sorry, the fact that they pled guilty made them much more trusted. Gary would be more trusted because he did, although I think Caroline is the source of most of what they have. Like, I think that's like, I mean, if you look at their allocutions, like hers has a lot more content, and in it, what happens is basically they plead guilty, and then the judge is like, I can't let you plead guilty unless you convince me you're guilty. Please convince me you're guilty. And then they go and tell their story. So that's like the relevant part of the documents. And Gary's is like a sparse 3 paragraphs, and Caroline's is like much, much longer than that. And also, if you look at the various lawsuits that have come out, like there's almost certainly a lot more color from Caroline in those.
Yeah. Did you expect her to testify against you and were you aware that this was happening?
By a week after the shit show, I expected it. I wouldn't have expected it prior, but it very quickly became clear that she was going to be going in that direction.
How did you come to that conclusion?
She feels incredibly guilty about what happened, and stressed, and also so she never wanted to be CEO of Alameda. I was CEO, and then I had to stop being CEO, and I had basically leave the company because of FTX. And I handed it off to her and Tribuco. And then Tribuco quit. So it was just her. And she pushed back a little bit on being CEO, and I basically said, you can do what you want, but I think it would be good for the world if you were. So she did it. I don't think she was happy doing it. And her life became very, very complicated and unpleasant and stressful, and she was asked to do a lot more than she ever signed up for, and she fucked it up, and she knew that. And then the meltdown happened, and one pathway would have been for her to try to strongly maintain that she fucked up and hurt a lot of people, and things are really complicated and a mess, and she has a huge number of duties that she has to do, and that also a lot of the allegations are wrong or misleading, but she did in fact fuck up, but not the way people are saying. And the other was to just accept everything and to go down the route of maximal, like, self-blame and blame of all of us, And she's getting a lot of pressure from the prosecutors and probably from her attorneys to do that, and from her friends, and from most of the people she knew. Anyway, after the shit show started, the word she used to describe to me how she was feeling was relieved.
Why was that? Did she feel like she was having to conceal a lot?
I think it took a lot of pressure off of her in a lot of ways. I don't know if it was so much concealing. I think it was like worrying, and it was like stressful as shit. And all of a sudden, there's no risk anymore. Like, the risk had happened, and so there's sort of no more risk. And I think coming to terms with the maximally bad outcome from her perspective made everything simpler, because it meant nothing worse could happen. And that's my basic sense of where her head is at. I think probably something like that is right, because among other things, I think she has perjured herself. In the, like, you know, bad direction, in the, like, being too harsh on herself direction, in what she's confessed to. And I don't know that that's a bad thing in her mind. I sort of think for her, like, she had to compare how happy she'd be in prison to how happy she was running Alameda. I'm not sure what she'd be happier doing.
Really?
Sorry, I think I know which. I think with her, in her current state of mind, she feels like she isn't sure what she'd be happier doing.
Right.
I think it's like a bit of a pretty strong reaction to the implosion of her life.
Yeah.
Over the last, I don't know, it's my guess, but like.
If she was relieved at the risk being sort of gone since the worst case scenario happened, though, like, does that mean that you were aware that you'd in some way put it into a position where that risk?
So I think she was more aware and more worried than I was going into it. That's my guess.
She does say that you directed her to do so much, though.
Yeah, they ignore the word directed. And that's a lie. Most of the times it's been said. It's also not a word she would ever use. Like, that's a word the government uses. I don't know if you noticed the number 10,000 appearing in Gary's allocution. It's like, I did knowingly and in concert with others cause it to be the case that greater than $10,000 was transferred, blah, 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 blah. It's like Gary did not come up with that number 10,000. The government wrote down that number 10,000 because it is the legal cutoff for various charges that they're trying. So and they're written by the government to a decent extent, but that's one of the things I think is like most consistently false when it appears in government documents, is like words like directed or like instructed or something like that. It's, I don't know, I thought there was like small but non-zero risk, and that there's basically zero risk a year earlier, and a lot of frustrating things happened over that last year, many of which I wish I could do over. Among other things, we should just shut down Alameda a year ago.
Yeah.
Rather than leaving it to other people to run.
When both Gary and Caroline are pointing the finger at Sam under oath, it's difficult for me to believe that Sam wasn't pulling a lot of these strings, but we obviously haven't heard Sam's defense in court yet, so I'm just reserving my judgment mostly for now, but obviously it's not looking so good for Sam or Gary or Caroline, so. By the way, I forgot to mention this is sort of an abbreviated, cut-down version of an interview excerpt. If you found it remotely interesting and want to listen to the longer version, it's available to my paid Twitter and my paid Substack subscribers. In the extended version, Sam talks more about Caroline's past. Apparently she was religious. Apparently she had a phase of being really into traditional gender norms. So it's more just personal details, so if you find that interesting, you can find it for my paid subscribers. Either way, I'll continue to make public recaps and summaries of Sam Bankman-Fried's criminal trial for all of you on social media, so if you want to follow along, you can follow me on YouTube or Twitter or Substack. I love you all so very much, and I will see you probably tomorrow after court.